Welcome to Two Humans Talking, the podcast that discusses the challenges of staying healthy, present, and fulfilled in this modern, fast-paced world. I'm Tiffany Sims, your Disney-loving nutritionist and high-performance coach, and I love talking about everything that helps simplify healthy for you, from food and exercise to getting the most out of life.
And I'm Chelsea Scroggins, your yoga teacher and motivational speaker. And I enjoy talking about all things that enhance the life. And today I want to talk about how we are always put on this pedestal to be so confident within ourselves, so all right all the time, supposed to be good, life is good, it's all good, you know what I mean? And not able to talk about what's really going on and how we really feel inside and how we wake up and we're not always 110% feeling motivated, great, ready to seize the day, or how we go throughout our day and just feel kind of emotional, or angry or sad or all the emotions combined in one, and what that really looks like. But yeah, when somebody talks to you and says, "How you doing?" You're like, "I'm good. I'm fine. Oh, I'm great."
I feel like people are programmed to be on either end of the spectrum. You either have the people who are like, it could be worse, I can't complain, I'll just tell and I don't want people, or I don't want to feel people to see my flaws, like I'm good. Or you
Mm,
camp of people who are just like, the world is horrible and it's all going up in flames, we should just burn the bitch down and just everyone sucks. And you're
that's
like, that's not cool either. Like,
that's true.
I
You're
don't
either
live this.
super pessimist or super optimistic.
Like, and I know for me, I really have no patience for the person who is always like doom and gloom, everything sucks and that's just the way it is. And
Right.
I people tend to tell me I lean more towards like toxic positivity. And wow, I didn't know I had so much to say about this actually. And I struggle with that when people are like, oh, like, where's the line of toxic positivity? And it's like, being optimistic even through the challenges, I don't think is toxic positivity. I think it's taking control of what you have control of and being
That's
grateful
true.
for what you have and knowing that you can get through this too. But then you have days like I had this week, and I know like my emotions, like I was sad, my feelings were hurt, and I have a really hard time processing that
Hmm.
when like someone or a group of someone's has hurt my feelings, because what's the word I want to use? My brain, oh, this is so good. My brain just went blank and turned off, and it was like, we can't talk about this. This is vulnerable. This is,
Ah.
we're done talking. Which,
Tiffany, you can do this. But I'll just interrupt real quick. What happens is it's hard to process your feelings. Sometimes you're not ready in your stage of life or in that day, or you have to suppress it, right? Because maybe something happened in the morning, but you all of a sudden have a client call at 10 a.m. And so what do? You summon your best self all of a sudden, and you bring that positive, or that motivate. I love that you bring that motivational, inspiration within to be your best self, and then you still haven't processed what happened that morning, so maybe it comes up a little later in the day because something triggers it, whether you see something, you hear something, smell something. And that can happen in life, period. Like, something can happen at 3 years old, and then all of a sudden here you are at 27 driving down the road, this random song comes on that reminded you of something that happened at 3 years old, and then boom, you're emotional, or you're processing through that. So that and a lot of the times we don't want to deal with it, because then that means processing, and it's not easy to process. It's sometimes easier to suppress until all of a sudden it builds up, and then you have no choice but to cry, yell,
well, honestly,
scream, lash out.
I don't know if other people feel this way, but like, I feel like it's a burden. Like, I don't want to burden someone else with my feelings
I
because
feel that way too.
emotions properly, or I had an expectation, or because I don't think it's fair to put expectations on other people. And so like I sometimes have a hard time articulating because I don't want to burden them. I don't want to make the other person feel bad. I don't want to acknowledge that someone hurt my feelings and then say, hey, that wasn't very nice. Because a lot of times when after you're done being emotional about it and you put your logic brain back on, you can see where all the places where like you had misstepped. And so it's very
Right.
blame yourself for for that spiral anyway. So it's like, let me just keep it to myself until I get back to my logical brain, and then I'll handle it and see where I could have done better. Um, and
But
I
then
also,
that can also be toxic too, because then in reality, if we're not speaking up for ourselves or speaking up for how we really feel and how that made us feel, then are our feelings validated, right? Because I do the same thing of what you're doing. Like, oh, I make an excuse of like, oh, well, maybe they just did this because of this, and I should have done this, right? But in reality, like it still made us feel that way. And if they were bold enough to do what they did to us, they should be able to handle how we felt, right? But it's hard to step up. I feel the same way because I don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings like they hurt mine.
I also don't want the pity that comes with it. I have a very hard time recognizing when, um, my, how do I want to word this? My brain, if I express that someone has hurt my feelings and then they
Mhm.
do something nice for me, my brain automatically says that they feel sorry for you and they're just being nice. When in reality, 90% of the time, they truly
Are apologizing.
have apologized, moved on, and then they're like asking you or doing something for you because they would have done that anyway.
Yeah.
Even if you had never had the conversation, maybe it's with your partner, your husband, your wife, your best friend, your mom, like, had you not had the conversation, whatever that next action was, they were probably going to do anyway. But for me, my brain says they just feel sorry for you, and they're taking care of you because you're like the cute little like special kid, and they don't
Well,
want
but
to be.
here's the other thing is some people are sorry for their actions, have no didn't realize how they made you feel. And maybe they do come out and they do something extra special to apologize because they internally feel crappy. You know what I mean? So to make it right, they genuinely want to make it right. So it's not really about pity for you. It may be about making their soul whole again,
Yeah.
right? Making their selves feel complete again. So just remember that. And you're not the little special kid that just always needs the special attention.
But yeah, you say that and I laugh about it, but like that is so like, welcome to therapy with Chelsea and Tiffany.
Here
Like,
we go. Let it
there
out.
we go. Like for me, my whole life, I have felt like people treat me differently because they don't want to hurt my feelings. Because I
Do
am
you
the
lash
emotional.
out when they hurt your feelings or something? Why do you feel that way?
Mm,
Because maybe they just see that you're a special light, a special being, and then because you love so deeply and so hard and so fast, and then when finally they hurt your feelings, they're like, oh my gosh, we can't dim her light. We need to make her bright again. So
that's a big
maybe,
burden too.
well, I
Like
know it's
the
hard to
example
be.
that I was thinking of, the one example that I think a lot of people might be able to that people might be able to relate to is like in the workplace. When I worked in nuclear power, I had a manager who was absolutely amazing, and I was in this state. He was the first person I had really ever worked for that was like positive and growth mindset and like
Nice.
all these things before I knew what those words were. He
Right.
was, and we got to grow together, and it was a safe place for me to like give a presentation and then come back in his office and be like, hey, like, how did that really go? Like,
Get the
I
feedback.
know what I did well because I'm not good at seeing that in myself. Like, I need you to tell me the things I'm good at, and
Right.
also I need to know where the gaps were so that I can go dial that part of my skill in my presentation. And people will be like, I really have no credit, like I got nothing for you, like it was amazing. And in my head, I could not accept that I was really good at something And in my head, I had made this story up that people just didn't want to hurt my feelings because they were afraid I would cry.
Ah, so you must cry when your feelings get hurt. And so internally you're thinking that nobody wants to see you cry. But in
That
reality, they really thought you were amazing and you did great and you did fantastic and probably taught them something, which in reality, Tiffany, you're really good at speaking. You're really good at articulating your words, really good at being that coach, that person, even on stage in front of the camera, you're really good at it. So yeah,
you
your
two that
presentation probably was amazing.
you're always hyping me up, and I'm like, no, but really, like you've put me on
So
a
you
pedestal.
need to work on that within yourself. That's something you need to start looking in the mirror and being like, I'm amazing. I'm amazing at speaking. I'm because your presentation is it's on point. It's on point. So
And I think that's why I think a big part of that, this whole conversation for me comes back to my binge eating disorder. I
mm,
was able to express myself without crying when I was a kid.
mm,
Was unwilling to say things like I was unwilling to tell my dad that he was hurting my
mm,
feelings when he didn't come around, or when he just show up once every 4 months to pretend to be a dad for a weekend. And like
mhm,
I didn't want to rock the boat in the little bit of time I had with in the little bit of time I had with him. And around
mhm,
that time was when I started sneaking food in my room or
mm,
condiments out of the fridge. Like I turned to comforting. The way I soothed myself and stuffed
mhm.
all the words and feelings down was I was uncontrollably hungry and I started eating. And I'm sure people who are listening can relate to that. Where are my emotions
Absolutely.
at? Like, hello.
Instead of speaking about your emotions, talking about how you're really feeling, talking about how certain people make you feel or how this is incorrect, instead you were suppressing it like all of us do, let's be honest. And we do it throughout the day. And if you have nobody to talk to, I mean, eventually it starts to consume you, whether the food is consuming you, your thoughts are consuming you, you're literally your organs inside of you are starting to fail because you are not processing your emotions properly. And that that is huge that you shared that. So thank you, by the way. That's not easy to share.
Like I had an emotional week and I didn't use my words well with the people I love.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't use words at all. I just cried, you know?
Yeah.
And so I didn't even give the people I love who triggered the hurt feelings, because it was like
Mm-hmm.
multiple different situations.
Mm-hmm.
I give them a chance to articulate or
Mm-hmm.
the conversation. Like I completely shut down and my brain started making up stories about what that meant about me, what that meant about the relationship that we had, what that meant about like all of these things. And so like so my coach brain is like I can't coach myself through it. Like it's just disabled right now. And so like how do we, no one wants to be the Debbie Downer of the group. No one wants to be the person that comes to the table and is just like word vomit, emotional vomit on everyone. So like for you, Charles, like how would you recommend for a friend who was feeling like I don't necessarily know how to express myself because I don't want to be a burden and I don't want to be the person that brings the mood down and I don't want to be that, because we have all been in a situation where like you have that one friend and you're like I don't want to invite them everywhere, like this
Yeah.
is like, so how do you balance not being that person while also honoring like the fact that we do need to talk about it, like
Right.
that.
So for me, what I'm doing now, haven't always been this way, but I've started to journal. And so processing my own thoughts, because sometimes when you just free write, and I'm not like journaling with the period and the comma and everything's just like letting it all go. And then if I need to, I come back and I read it like a day later or, or 2 days later and be like, oh, that's like I'm processing what it is I was really thinking, what it is I was really feeling. And sometimes talk about the feelings. So it's not just all inspiration. No, today was fantastic. I'm like, I feel like death today. My allergies are killing me. Like I was hurt by such and such and blah, 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 blah. Like I get down to the nitty gritty. And so it helps me process and eliminate some of those um, thoughts, so to speak. Another thing that I do is breath and movement, right? Go for that walk, do that yoga practice, do that workout. That's another thing to help me process. And then I come back and I either send like a text and I don't start with like, oh, you did this. I'm like, here's the thing is I'm kind of passive aggressive and I'm trying not to be. I can be passive aggressive, but the other thing that I've done in the past is bottled it up. And then like one day you'll just hear about it. And like, I just boom, explode, which is not healthy. So that's why I've started journaling. And then you find that person who you talk to. So doing like a weekly meetup to just process your feelings with people you do feel safe about, I think is very important. Or maybe you have a coach that you can talk to or a therapist. Like, let's be honest, we need to talk about how things make us feel and then get us a different perspective on the situation, because when you're in the situation it's hard to see all angles of what's going on and maybe the other person's motive versus your motive for that moment too, because you might have had a different motive at the time that you were you know being in that moment, and that's why maybe you were triggered. And there's also things that happened in your past that all of a sudden somebody said something they didn't even mean it, but it just triggered something within you. So that's what I suggest is honestly movement and taking time by yourself too to process, taking that deep breath before you go and word vomit. Process, think about it before you just all of a sudden just hurt some more feelings, because when you're riled up and if it makes you angry, I really highly, highly, highly suggest that you do the breath sh sound. So you breathe in and you just that helps you bring your blood pressure down, helps you bring that anger to a bay. And if you're super, super sad, the S sound, the S breath. So you breathe
Also,
in.
relieving the pressure on a pressure cooker. That
And
same
the
noise
S,
the pressure cooker makes,
yes.
you open it up to release the steam.
So it makes perfect sense. Yes. And I could teach it like telling the world to be quiet or telling that person to be quiet or telling yourself to be quiet, right? So it's like, calm down, calm down. So that's how you'll remember that one. That the other one for sadness. So if ever somebody makes you feel sad, before you just maybe jump and be like, look, this made me feel this way, or go into your bubble of like, I'm just whatever, and I'm so this and I'm that, the pity party. All of a sudden you feel for yourself because somebody was angry or said something mean to you to make you feel crappy. The S. So you breathe in and S like a snake. Like you're slowly inflating your tire, just, and then breathing in and feeling your tire back up, just feeling your body back up with that wonderful positivity, right? And it's not always easy to be positive all the time. You have to choose to do that. And it's not easy to be negative all the time. For all those negative people out there, I can guarantee it's not easy to wake up and all of a sudden look at the world in a negative way. You know what I mean? So that's what I do. What do you do now?
Yeah.
Or what?
Now that my emotional brain has calmed itself back down, because I legit went into fight or flight mode on the inside. Like I felt it happening. I felt my body shutting down. I felt my body being like, this is unsafe. Let's not do this. This is scary. Let's just go back to being okay. And so like now that we've calmed back down and I'm regulated. The other thing when you were speaking, and I didn't handle this very well when we were chatting on Wednesday because I was like in it. But the other thing I think is really, really important when you do open up to the people that you trust and then you are sharing the things that are like stressing you out. Sometimes we need to
Listen.
but I was gonna say, sometimes we have to take the ownership a little bit and let the other person know what we need
Mm,
when before we
that's
start to,
true too.
because like I was sharing that I was feeling like
Lonely.
lost and lonely, and
Yeah.
this was even before some of the other stuff that unfolded this week with people in my life. But it was solely like I can't find groups to join because I'm not a mommy in me. I can't find, like, I don't know where to go make friends, and there's no like adult things, like, when you're a kid you
Activities.
sign up for soccer and art camp and summer camp and dance, and like that stuff just doesn't exist as readily for adults. And so I was feeling so like lonely already, and I was sharing that with you and our other friend, and Chelsea like went into like let me help you mode.
Fix
And
mode. Yeah.
and it was totally valid, and it was totally out of a place of love, of like, we got this, like, come on buttercup, like we're just gonna go make our own groups, like you can do this. And I like, in that moment I was like, I don't want you to fix me, I just
And,
want to be sad.
and that's the thing with people who are fixers, and I'm definitely a fixer, but
But had I come
um,
to the table and knowing that, like, you would have wanted to help me out of that, because I would have done the same thing, had I said,
mhm, you
I
are a
just
fixer.
take this off my chest so that I knew, so that you knew to put your listening ears on, like I could have helped that. Like that's something I could have taken responsibility for, right? Before we got there. And so like that's also something that I have noticed myself asking when a friend tells me they're having a hard time. It's okay. Do you need to work, especially being a coach in what I do for a living? Some
Mhm,
like to ask, like, hey, do you just need us to be angry at the world and me listen and tell you that everything, like, fuck them, sorry for the language, but like, do you need that version of Tiffany who's really here listening, supporting you,
mhm.
or do you need the version of me
Advice.
that's like gonna help ask the right questions to guide you to where you're going? And and my friend, and so like I have to ask that, because I do come to the table with a different set of skills than maybe some other friends that aren't in the coaching world. And
Right.
so my friends are like, no, I need you to tiff for me. And other times they're like, hey, I just need to get it
Listen.
out
Yeah.
because I'm boiling on the inside. And so like it's okay to say those things. It's okay to tell
Right.
you what you need from them in the moment that you're expressing your feelings.
And if you don't tell them, do not bite their head off for allowing them, because they are who they are. So some people will just give advice automatically. I am that person. Yes, as y'all already know, I interrupt. I talk when I do. But because I'm a fixer, but I also can listen and I hear you, and you know what I mean. But I have a harder time listening without fixing. Like I'm like, oh, solution. Like just solution pops in my head. It's just my gift, like solution. We could change this. But in reality, I didn't know the full depths. And another thing, if you don't know the full depths behind the whole story, then you're kind of jumping in halfway and you can make a fool of yourself. And I also wanted to say real quick, or it just hit me, or it hit me and then it left. So sorry, that won't
Yeah,
be said
they'll come
today.
back. They'll come back.
Maybe.
Uh, and so like it's just hard. And I know that I am someone who turns to food
A lot of people do.
when they don't want to feel the feel. And it's not even that I don't want to feel the feels. It's that for so long I felt like my feelings were a burden, and that my feelings ruined the little bit of time I had with the people I cared about, like my dad when he came around like once every 4 months. Like I didn't want to ruin the little bit of time we had, so I didn't.
Right.
And body manifested that into like I used to hide in the closet, and then that became the everything coping mechanism. And so like learning to rewire that and understanding like, okay, so now like for me, I know that if I catch myself like about to sneak food, which I don't do very often anymore, but it still happens, or
Mhm.
like I catch myself like eating to the point of uncontrollably eating to the point of
Mhm.
discomfort and not being able to stop, I've luckily had enough practice now that it's like, oh, wait a second, what are we not dealing with?
Yeah.
And a lot of times the stuff is so hidden under all the other stuff that it's not even something that you would have known unless you were paying attention to say something's not right. And then
Right.
sometimes it's something as stupid as I'm really frustrated that you keep putting the toilet paper on backwards. But and it had nothing to do with the toilet paper. It had to do with like the laundry list of other little things
Right.
that like were
That are
grading
just adding up.
and they all come together and you're like, oh, wait a second, I've been ignoring all of these things because I didn't want to make a big deal out of everything, and now it's becoming a big deal inside of me because
It's
they're
true.
all piled up like a freaking pile of garbage.
Yep.
And so
So what are you doing now to help that situation? Or when that does arise and you all of a sudden like notice, what do you do at that point?
So this is gonna sound silly, but what I have found that works best for me is some kind of physical something. And so like if you're ever around and you just see me out of nowhere, just like clap. Sorry, Lexi. I'm scared of the dog. Clap. It's because like that I've learned is like that disruptor for me to step back into control.
Snapping out of it. You're like, snap out of it. Let's
Yep. I used to go for walks. I like walked myself stupid at one point because that was the only thing I could do to like redirect my energy,
but
which was a good step, but not always the healthiest option. You can't just physical activity yourself into a hole.
correct. Correct.
It's a whole nother emotional
It's a
monster.
combo. You have to physical, mental, you know, breathe, talk, like it's a combo.
Getting outside, getting my thoughts together so that I can go articulate my feelings because
Mhm.
learning that my words have value. Like I
Yes.
know other people's words have value. I coach
Correct.
them to know their words have value, but it doesn't mean that I don't struggle with my own words having value.
Course. That's why we all have our own coaches and teachers. Like, we're not just like, hey, I'm a coach, I'm a teacher, and that's where it stops. We have somebody above us to help us with our perspective of life and help us to encourage us that our words are valuable and all that.
You have to because you can know all the things and you can know what's best and you can coach someone else through the hardest, darkest, deepest seasons of their life. But when it comes to your own, like you're a part of it. Like you can't
Correct.
always your way through your emotions and you just need a sounding board.
Correct.
So for
Someone who
me,
can see all aspects of it can give you a different perspective in a time of maybe rage, sadness, doubt, can give you the proper words that maybe an exercise routine, whatever it may be, a new like just insight, a new light inside of you that burns brighter. Like that's why you need that extra coaching and teaching and stuff.
so I feel like I keep avoiding the answer to your question. So when I worked in an office building and privacy was not as easy,
Mhm.
when I would get myself overwhelmed and frustrated and my emotions were building up and all of the things, or if I was angry,
Mhm.
anything, I would go walk to the furthest bathroom
So you get a walk in
and back, or
movement.
I would walk outside to my car.
Mm,
And because being outside is very helpful for regrounding you, and it create helps you create enough space from the situation and moment that you can like regroup and come and enter a conversation in a productive manner, because there's no point in expressing yourself when you're at the height of your emotions, because
correct.
the other person one isn't going to be able to receive you at that energy level, and so they're going to combat you with an
Correct.
ugly energy, which is just in the spiral out of you both out of control. And then two, when we are at that heightened level of frustration or anger or disappointment or feeling lost, like your bird brain is in play. So like you're not even articulating yourself the way you want to articulate. So then you spend the rest of the day being like, that's not what I meant to say at all. And
Yep.
I should have said this, or I should have said it that way, or if I had worded it like this, they would have heard me and we would have made progress. So just creating that space just allows you to know if it's something that we really do need to address, or like it's over and done with like a gust of wind, and then getting your thoughts together to handle it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that will be the end of our podcast today, I think. Basically, give yourself space, write it out, talk it out, do your breath work, do your movement, and just
Yeah.
know that your emotions are valid, but they do not have to run your life. And you can change your perspective from a negative to a positive just as fast as you can change your positive to a negative. But
Oh
I
yeah.
advise you to change it to a positive if you can at all costs. And then the last thing that I finally remember is you never know what somebody is going through. So treat everybody with respect, because you never know how your words, how your action are going to affect that person. So I want to invite you to always respect them with a positive smile, really truly listen, and just fill yourself up with love and everybody else around you with love. So
And I
thank you
want to
for being
invite
here.
you, yes, and I want to invite you to leave your takeaway in the comments below. Like, what was your aha moment? What was your like, oh, that was really good? Or did we stir up some emotions for you that you're open to sharing? Leave that below. And with that, two humans talking. Peace out.
Bye.